Hello, this is Dr. Alan Yim. In this video, I'm going to be talking about transposition. Transposition is changing the key of an entire piece, and we're going to look at it in three different ways. First, we're going to look at the simple case of transposing something to another key, a piece of music. And then the second two ways, we're going to be looking at transposing instruments. So we're going to be looking at taking music that's written in C, for instruments that play in C, such as the piano, and transcribing it for other instruments that do not play in the key of C. And then third, we're going to take a look at an orchestral score to compare the instruments that play in C with the ones that don't, and to learn how to figure out what notes these instruments are actually playing. Okay, let's start with the simple case of transposition. So suppose you have Mary Had a Little Lamb and it's in the key of F. So up above, okay. Down below, suppose that it's just a little bit too high for me and I want to sing it in E. I want to write it in the key of E. How would I do that? Well, first of all, I'm going to write the key signature for E, which, as you know, 4 sharps. And now I have to move all of the pitches. So when you transpose, and this one may seem quite obvious, you have to look at the relationship between these two keys. Well, E is down a half step from F. It's down a step. So we basically are going to move all of the notes above down a step, just to change the key. It's really simple. So I'll just take the starting note, A, and I'm going to put it on G. Down a whole step. Sorry, not down a whole step, down a half step to G sharp. Once you get the starting note, you don't have to do this for every single note, because if you can imagine, it would be painful. Suppose you had to transpose a major 6 down, or you wouldn't want to sit there and transpose each note thinking major 6 down, major 6 down, major 6. No. Instead, I'm just going to look above. I see it goes down 2 steps. So I start here, I go down a step, I go down a step. Then it's going to go up a step. Then I look across the bar line, it goes up another step. And then it stays the same. So I'm looking at this and comparing the intervals. In measure 3, it goes down another step. And I'm following the rhythms. Now I'm going to add the stems. Because Mary Had a Little Lamb is diatonic, it does not go outside of the key. I don't need to add any accidentals. One way of thinking about this is by looking at the solfege, right? Movable solfege, of course, mi, re, do, re, mi. You could do this anytime just to check to make sure that you're on the right track. In the key of E, G sharp is mi, re, do, re, mi. So, of course, using movable do, the solfege should be identical in both parts. So up above, down below. A lot of software will do this for you, but if you had to do it by hand, that's how I would recommend doing it. It's very, very easy. Now you might ask, well, what about if you have some kind of accidentals? So suppose I had a sharp here, and then a natural, or a flat, and then a natural, something like this. How would that affect down below? Well, let's take a look first at measure 2. So second note is raised up. We have a G sharp here, so this is going to be the very ugly G double sharp, followed by G sharp, the key signature. And then in the third measure, we're lowering that note down, so it's an F sharp. To lower it, we have to make it natural, and then we put it back to sharp. So you have to be a little bit vigilant of the key signature, but accidentals should not cause a problem. You notice in the original, if it's sharp, you raise it up in the new key. And then if it's natural, of course, you see what happens. You put it back to the key signature. If it's flat, you lower it. And then, of course, natural, again, put it back to the key signature. So here's what it sounds like. In the key of F. Okay. And then in the key of E. Okay. So that's transposition from one key to the other. Now let's take a look at instruments. If if you're not familiar with transposing instruments, you've never played in band, you don't play these instruments that transpose, this may come as a little bit of a shock. But on the piano, when you see a C, you play it, out comes a C. You see an E flat, out comes an E flat. That just seems normal. That's our regular music world. But not all instruments do this. Some instruments transpose. And you can recognize these instruments by their names, such as B flat clarinet, D trumpet, E flat alto sax, F horn. Sometimes you don't see the name, like for example, the French horn, we don't put that F there. Sometimes we just say alto sax, and you have to know that the instrument transposes. So trumpets, if they don't say anything, if they just say trumpet, it's a B flat trumpet probably. But if it's some other kind of trumpet, and there are many different trumpets that play in different keys, they have to put the letter name usually, like D trumpet. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it means that when you ask the instrument to play a C, right? Play C, this is the sound. So out comes this note. These notes come out of the instrument when you ask it to play a C. So B flat clarinet, I'm just going to use this as a reference point. This is C4 on the piano. B flat clarinet, play that note. Out comes that note, a whole step down. Trumpet, play that note. Out comes a D, up a step. Alto sax, down a major sixth, and horn, down a perfect fifth. So when you ask those instruments to play a C, out comes their name, basically. All right, that might seem fairly straightforward. I hope it does. How does that look if you want to transpose a piece that's written for piano, and I give you a little example over here, into a score for these other instruments? Well, here's the piano part in the key of G. So if you see these two chords here, it sounds like this. Okay, so it's a little bit of it's an F7 going to G over D. And we're going to transpose it to these instruments. You know what, it would probably be helpful if I put the D here in the first chord, and that way we have 4 notes. So I'll just assign 1 note to each of the instruments. I'll put it in order. It may not be the most convenient for these instruments or the best sounding, but that's what I'm going to do. And in the second chord, I'll double the G, okay, just to emphasize that. So let's start. Let's try this. Okay, I'll put a little red line to give you an idea of what I'm doing. So that's going to go for to be the B flat clarinet note. This is going to be this person's note, and then okay, if I do that, we're going to have some interesting crossing here. So let's put this, I'll give this note to the alto sax, and I'll give this note to the horn. So if you notice here, sometimes you actually change the order a little bit. I'm going to do that just for some fun. It's not really going to make a difference, but let's continue. The key on the left is G. I'm going to transpose the key signature for each of these instruments. So let's think about this. This is where it gets a little bit funny. So the B flat clarinet, think about this. You ask it to play a C, out comes a B flat. So if you actually want to hear a C, what note do you have to write for the B flat clarinet? Well, I'll put it over here on the right. So the written note is up a step, a whole step. Okay, because if you want to hear a C, for example, you have to write a D, and out comes a C. So that means that for the key signature, we need to raise the key signature up a step. So for the G, if we raise up G, that B flat clarinet is, I'll put it in red to make it really stand out. It now needs to be in the key of A. Let me do the key well, I'll put the note in. Okay, so we want the B flat clarinet to play that C natural. We're going to have to write a D. The trumpet, it plays C, out comes a D. So if we want to hear C, we need to write a whole step down. Okay, so down a step. And it has to be a whole step. So we're in the key of G. We're going to have to write for the trumpet in the key of F. And we're going to give it that A, so we have to write a G, a down a step, in order to hear that note, that A. Okay, hope you're following this. Let's look at the E flat alto sax next. Okay, the E flat alto sax transposes a sixth down, a major sixth. So from C down to E flat, it's a major sixth. In order to hear the note that we want, we have to write up a major sixth. Okay, and you know what? I'm going to be consistent here. Let me change these. These steps here are, to make it more precise, major seconds. Okay, so if we want to have the correct key for the alto sax, we're in the key of G, up a major sixth from G is E, so the alto sax is going to be playing in the key of E. So everybody gets a different key signature, almost. And we'll see what... We want that alto sax to play that D, so we have to write up a major sixth, and up a major sixth from D is B. Okay, so that now the alto sax will be playing this when it plays that note there that you see, the B, out comes this D. So it looks like this on the piano, but actually it's this note that comes out of the alto sax. And lastly, let's look at the horn. The horn is kind of an oddball because a lot of the time, especially before the 19th century, they did not use key signatures. So I'm not going to write the key signature in here. I'll put it in parentheses. It transposes, for the written part, it should be up a perfect fifth. Okay, it transposes a perfect fifth down. So a perfect fifth up from G is D. I'll just put it in parentheses here. We're not going to write the key signature though. And the note that it has we want to hear an F, up a perfect fifth from F, is C. Okay, so there you see it. You see the different key signatures. On the left side, the piano has these chords. And now, on the right, you see this crazy variety of pitches, but you're going to have to trust me on this one. The chords you're actually hearing from these 4 pitches that I wrote is this. Okay? So now, oh, you know what? I just realized something. Because this should be sharped. Sorry. Because we didn't write the key signature for D, we need to write a C sharp. Otherwise, we're going to get an F natural, which would be this chord. Okay, but we want an F sharp, so it matches the piano. Now we'll go ahead and move these notes. This is the easy part, because if you remember from before, I don't have to think all these complicated intervals. I'm just going to move by the interval that the voice is moving. So what does that mean? Take a look at, for example, the upper voice. It's going down a step. So, using that method I had before, I'm just going to write it down a step like that. And I'm done. So on the left side, it looks like this on the piano. And of course, on the right side, it's going to sound like that as well. Okay? Now, on the middle part, the trumpet part is going to go down to a G. So similarly, it's going to step down from that G down to F. And the next part is in the horn, and it's going to leap down. Oh, actually, I'm going to step it up, because you notice that's the leading tone, that F sharp to G. So on the right side, it's transposed. It's going to be C sharp up to D. And then lastly, the bottom note, the low note, the D, is going to stay where it is. So I could just do that. Okay? And I'm done. So take a look at it. It looks very different on the right side because of these transpositions. It might be very confusing looking, but that's what it looks like if I change the piano score into a score for clarinet, trumpet, alto sax, and horn. Okay, but the overall sound is going to be that on the piano. Okay, we're going to move on now to look at a score.